many men.
She flaunted her figure in the conservative face of the skating world, and her moves on ice ignited the libidos of men who weren't even fans.
In Katarina Witt's case, there were numbers of like rabid psycho fans. These people are not dealing with a slow Dutch.
A bodyguard or Hollywood entourage can slow a deluded fan. Traveling as a team can make an athlete hard to reach, but ice skaters like Katarina are usually all alone, on the ice and off.
In fact, I can't think of a single skater that could sort of hold their own to Katarina's sensuality.
For one obsessed fan, Katarina's sizzling sex appeal was too much to resist.
Miss Katarina Witt.
It started in 1988 when this man, 43-year-old Harry Veltman, sat watching the Olympics on TV. From Calgary, Katarina's voluptuous image filled the screen in Veltman's California home. At that moment, Harry fell into a bizarre love with the sexy skater.
Oh, in his mind, he believed that they did have a relationship, and that's what scared her the most.
This man was a juror on the trial against Harry Veltman. The details of what Katarina endured are so lurid, the man has asked us to conceal his identity as he retells the details.
He would just do a lot of things that you would never... We go back and do that. You want me to say that, what he did? He went to her house and knocked on the door and made sure that she was watching, and he would in front of her. It was just a gross thing to me.
Jeff Brody covered the stalking trial for the Orange County Register.
Her life was indeed threatened. He was a nuisance to her and a threat, and he was stalking her.
Veltman began terrorizing the German-born beauty by sending menacing letters.
Harry sent her about 60 letters. He was persistent. He didn't stop.
Soon, the letters turned into obscene and terrifying threats.
I have orgasms thinking about you. I'm going to try photographing me for you. I love for you and lust for you so much, Katarina. I would never do anything to harm you. You have virtually no security in your home. If I were evil, I could have broken a window, entered your home, and raped you and killed you before you could even telephone for help.
She was quite concerned because in one of the letters that he had sent to her, he expressed his desire killing her and killing himself in a dual murder-suicide pact.
As Veltman continued to fantasize about his favorite skater, the thrill of writing sexually explicit letters wore off. He needed more. So he started following the young Katarina, stalking her around the world. He even approached Katarina face-to-face on several terrifying occasions.
And then he would send her these pictures that were pornographic of him lying in bed. It was obvious that the guy was deranged.
After almost 2 years of getting nowhere, Veltman grew angry. If he couldn't have her, nobody would.
I think Harry Veltman thought himself as a jilted lover that was never going to stop loving her or trying to get her attention.
I am asking God to bring us together in heaven, in the spirit, as soon as possible. Please don't be afraid when God allows me to pull you out of your body, to hold you tight. Then you'll know there is life beyond the flesh. Whoever fails to follow my rules must be terminated.
In an act of desperation, the terrified skating star contacted the FBI. But unbelievably, the feds claimed there wasn't enough evidence to arrest Veltman. She had never been more afraid or alone. Harry Veltman III, a known paranoid schizophrenic, had flown across the world to terrorize the skating star. He sent dozens of nude and obscene photos and had threatened to murder her, yet he was still running loose. It took a horrifying moment at a skating competition in Denver, Colorado, to finally get the feds' attention.
And he was there yelling and screaming and throwing things on the ice.
All too often, someone who's in the public arena can be subject, to stalking or threats or violence from a fan who's upset. And there's great difficulty in guarding against that because she's appearing in so many different public places.
At last, Veltman was arrested, but that terrifying night in Denver was not the last time Katarina was forced to face this dangerous stalker. In a pitiful last-ditch effort to be near the skating beauty during his trial, Veltman acted as his own attorney. It was the only way he could speak directly to the woman of his dreams.
He made some bizarre requests during this trial. I think one of them was that he wanted the jury to be a jury of nymphomaniacs. Of course, the judge did not go along with that.
Veltman's final passion play in front of the jury didn't work. He was convicted on 6 counts of sending obscene and threatening mail.
Well, it has been a terrible experience for me, and you can understand that I'm glad that's over.
Veltman was sentenced to 3 years in a psychiatric ward. But on August 31st, 1994, the paranoid schizophrenic was set free again. In the years since Veltman's conviction, skating has implemented few, if any, precautions to improve the personal safety of its skaters. Danger can lurk in any crowd, anytime these public figures take to the streets. On Thin Ice made several attempts to reach Veltman for comment, but was unable to find him. The juror who helped convict the stalker says Veltman is still a threat to Katerina.
I don't think he'll ever give up. This guy would do anything to get to her.
And one last chilling thought. What happened to Katerina could happen to any single skater out there all alone on the ice. Still ahead, a freak accident leaves a skating champion in a pool of blood. The video you've heard of, but never seen, Tonya Harding's wedding night sex tape. Teenage skaters are mutilating their own bodies to try and win it all.
Took a razor and would just cut herself.
And the skating coach is accused of the most vile of crimes.
He started exposing himself to me, asking me to touch his genitals.
All that and more when we return with On Thin Ice, the dark side of skating. The ice is a dangerous place. Sometimes things can go horribly wrong. Despite years of practice, the slightest misstep can result in a fall that can prove devastating to the skater's body. Bruises, fractures, broken bones, torn ligaments, concussions. It's not a pretty sight. Mandy Watzel had to be carried off the ice, the blood dripping from her face. Rising star Naomi Narina smashed her head on the ice. She wound up with a badly strained neck, yet she kept on skating.
Sometimes she falls on ice, so she stopped kind of, crying. Sometimes she cries on ice. I don't accept the crying on ice, so you have to be, a tough girl and on ice. So off the ice, you can be free like a normal kid. Don't give up at all,
Injuries are just a part of the life of a competitive skater. For them, the name of the game is keep skating.
Oh, no. You can see the pain just as he was doing the footwork. There's no way he can go on.
Ignore the pain. Skate to win.
When the skater comes down, he or she is coming down on one leg, and all of that impact and all of the vibration is transmitted from, obviously, skate blade, particularly up through the knee. And you can see why skaters would have sore knees, and then, of course, sore backs, which would be related to it. The physical demands of the sport are really remarkable.
The consequences of an accident are potentially devastating. The ultimate skating horror story may be that of pairs figure skater Elena Berezhnaya. Elena and her partner Oleg Shilikov were practicing camel spins at a Latvian rink in January 1996. As the couple's sharp blades cut through the air, the two pushed themselves faster, closer. As Oleg's serrated toe pick whipped through the air with frightening velocity, the blade ripped into Elena's skull, sending bone fragments into her brain. The gravely injured Elena was rushed to the hospital. Nobody knew if she would live or die. The medical team hurried Elena into the operating room, where they performed hours of grueling surgery directly on her brain. Hours and minutes slowly ticked by as everyone waited anxiously to see if she would pull through. And if she did, what kind of life could she have? But finally, incredibly, Elena survived. She woke up only to discover that she might never skate or even walk again. For several months, Elena endured physical therapy with no guarantee of recovery. Slowly, she returned to her feet. The day came when her new partner, Anton Chikiralidze, and coach Tamara Moscovina nervously watched as Elena gingerly put her skates on for the first time since the accident.
And we tried to skate, and one day it was very slow, easy, just try to skate. And little bit, and it was growing, you know? And she felt better and better, right?
After many more pain-filled months of training, Elena Berezhnaya was finally ready to take to the competitive ice with her new partner, Anton.
Let's have a warm welcome now for Elena Berezhnaya and Anton Chikiralidze.
The pair shocked the world by making what was arguably one of the biggest comebacks ever. And they weren't just skating, they were winning.
Last year, we won everything.
Grand Prix Series.
Grand Prix Series, European, Worlds.
And second Olympic. And first four.
Elena Berezhnaya cheated death, but she learned firsthand about the ultimate terror that comes with horrific skating accidents. Accidents that can happen to any skater at any time. Now the whole thing just seems like a distant nightmare.
New team, new partner, new life. Total everything new from the beginning. I'm so happy. Yeah, that's its second life. It's really.
But it's also a life she doesn't want to pass on as a legacy.
No. I said today that I never take my child to figure skating. No way.
Because she knows that any accident on the ice can be worse than the one that nearly ended her own life. Still ahead, teenage girls are destroying their bodies for judges who like them skinny and young.
I would binge and purge and binge and purge.
It's skating and skin for these stars who bear it all and shock the world.
She knew from the get-go that sex appeal would sell in this sport.
And some skaters are exposed against their will. A rising skating superstar throws his life away for drugs.
Everything became such a blur. He ate too much, he drank too much sex, too much everything.
And this man says his skating coach molested him for years.
He'd strip naked and he'd start grabbing at me.
When on thin ice, the dark side of skating returns. Thin Ice has learned that ice skating has an ugly, troubling side, littered with young women whose hard-nosed coaches are convincing them to harm and literally mutilate their own bodies in the obsessive pursuit of the perfect figure.
One of my friends would self-mutilate herself. She took a razor and would just cut herself. I was binging and throwing up or just not eating at all. I had a friend who ate a peach a day. She'd just crumble into nothing.
There's a lot of people basically killing themselves.
Skinny, little, itsy bitsy is how you become in the top 10 right now. And the reason is simple. It's how quickly you turn in the air. So if you have virtually no body at all, you turn like a pencil.
Whether they're going under the knife or making themselves throw up, you won't believe how many young skaters will do anything to stay thin as long as they win.
Is anorexia a problem in this sport? Yes, it is.
My coaches had said to me that I was getting a little chubby. They wanted me to lose 5 pounds. It never seemed to end. It just seemed like there was always more weight to lose, more weight to lose.
Lisa Irvin, the silver medalist in the 1993 U.S. Nationals, is bearing her soul for the first time on national television. Lisa reveals some of the darkest secrets about an ugly truth in ice skating, a truth that almost killed her.
The first thing was the laxatives. I'd take more and more and more and more of them. Starting with 1 pill to 12 pills. There were times when I'd be buying like 5 boxes of laxatives a week. I would binge and purge and binge and purge. I was depressed. Telling me at 14 that I couldn't skate was my whole entire world. I was always really scared. Without skating, there was nothing, and with skating, I was killing myself.
Just imagine what Lisa was doing to her body. All her binging and purging, medically known as bulimia, and starving herself, called anorexia, finally caught up with her at the 1994 National Championships. It was the day her dreams of ice skating glory finally came crashing down.
I went out and skated just awful, and I can remember just wanting to get off the ice, just wanting to go. The weight was blamed. It was all about the weight. After that was when everything just hit rock bottom, basically.
Is Lisa the only skater to have ever hit rock bottom? We were shocked to learn that according to a major medical study, more than 60% of all female athletes suffer from an eating disorder. Even more shocking is the gruesome act of self-mutilation, performed by some girls who think their bodies are not perfect enough.
One of my friends was bulimic. One of my friends was anorexic. One would self-mutilate herself. She took a razor and would just cut herself.
Allison Sandler, a former national class ice dancer, witnessed the results of a young skating colleague who sliced her wrist with a razor blade.
My friend had shown me what she had done, and I was really upset that my friend was going through this. But it's to get out of all the anguish that she was feeling. She would make it physical, but it's horrible. It's just horrible to do that.
While some skaters use razor-sharp knives on themselves, there are others who allow knives to be used on them. Nothing's too outrageous for the perfect skating body.
Now, I've definitely heard stories of coaches asking the skaters to get breast reductions. This is the side of figure skating that, to me, is the most troublesome.
The future of women's skating is the young and the breastless.
Common sense would indicate that skaters should stop doing damage to their bodies, and that parents and coaches would insist that their kids' health is more important than a medal. But the lure of gold and glory continues to turn many people blind to this dark side of skating.
I think it's been swept under the rug a lot.
When Allison confided in her mother about her friend's self-mutilation and other skaters' eating disorders, Linda Sandler immediately reported it to officials.
I talked to the director at the rink and told them that my daughter knew of 3 or 4 girls and one was self-mutilating herself.
Nothing ever happened. It was swept under the rug, which is so wrong, so sad. People's lives are being ruined. So bad. My life was over. I mean, that's what I felt like.
No one's life was more negatively impacted than Lisa Urban's. The pressure and pain of her skating failure and the humiliation of her eating disorder almost completely destroyed her. For Lisa, suicide was her final option.
I think it had crossed my mind. I mean, to be honest with you, I think it really did. And just because I saw skating slipping away from me, and the minute that I'm being told that I can't do this anymore, that I shouldn't come back to the rink until the weight had changed, that, I mean, literally broke my heart. I didn't know what to do. I mean, what else was I supposed to do? Skating was who I was. There was no Lisa without skating.
Although Lisa made the decision to live instead of die, she continues to see every day kids just like her, faced with the same dangers. To them, body mutilation is worth the risk, at least if they live through it.
It's just really painful to think I could have done this and been maybe great. I mean, maybe not. Maybe I would have become nothing. But there's this what-if question that will, I think, haunt us forever, especially me, forever.
Later, the first time on network TV, it's the biggest skating scandal ever, Tonya Harding's wedding night video. Teenage superstars are destroying themselves for fun.
Drinks to cocaine to wild nights and wild women.
And
he started exposing himself to me, asking me to touch his genitals.
He was afraid to talk about it, but now this man claims his skating coach abused him for years.
It was like a reign of terror that was going on here.
When on thin ice, the dark side of skating continues. Christopher Bowman was a figure skating god, a 2-time national champion, and a miracle on the ice.
I was, the party animal.
But Bowman fell from superstar grace into a dark world of drug addiction and homelessness. A teenage kid whose fall was the worst in the history of figure skating.
Christopher Bowman could have been potentially the biggest star in the history of the sport.
Christopher Bowman could have been the biggest star who ever lived.
On Thin Ice now reveals the true story behind the downfall of skating rebel Christopher Bowman. The lurid tale of how fast money, easy women, and bad drugs destroyed the career of the kid who could have been the best there ever was.
The question of what happened to Christopher Bowman is simple. He ate too much, he drank too much sex, too much everything.
Christopher Bowman was self-destructive.
Chris Bowman began training with a world-class coach over 20 years ago in California's San Fernando Valley. But living just 10 miles from the rowdy world of Hollywood, Chris had already begun to live the life of a rebel.
Going out and getting high and drinking and just doing the underage thing, all that crazy stuff, was just your typical Friday and Saturday night in Los Angeles. It was just something that made me just that extra little bit more dangerous. Added that little bit more fuel to that rebel image.
An image that he sold not only to skating fans, but also to Hollywood.
He was in commercials and movies and got caught up with the Hollywood thing that nobody really knew what was going on, I think.
That's because Chris was able to keep skating and winning, even as his need to party grew darker and uglier.
Experimenting with drugs or taking them at a party became, something that I was introduced to like any other teenager or child would be exposed to today.
The fast talkers, smooth operators, and cheap friends soon turned this innocent young champ into a hardcore dope fiend.
Christopher was too talented, too young, too famous, surrounded by groupies and girls who threw themselves at them, and friends who offered him everything from drinks to cocaine to wild nights and wild women.
You're strong, and being in such incredible physical shape lends itself that idea that I'm invincible and will live forever.
Despite living on this dark side, Bowman continued to win several world-class tournaments, including placing first at the U.S. Nationals in 1989 and 1992, and a silver at the World Championships in 1989.
I'm 19 years old. I can do this. I can go out drinking the night before, or, have a relationship with my girlfriend the day of the event. It's a lot of work to try and, recover from the night before and then go out there, do what you got to do and do it well in front of the whole world.
The skating world, whether it knew it or not, often enabled Bowman to continue living on the dark side during the height of his popularity by covering up his drug use and out-of-control behavior, as evidenced by this press conference.
I just wonder how your friends and family reacted to seeing those things, the subject of drugs, actually printed.
I've advised Christopher not to respond to this type of rumor, innuendo, false accusation.
Despite the excuses and denials, Chris was in the throes of a destructive drug addiction.
Everything became, in these circles, like such a blur. Waking up in, hotel rooms or various places and going to the front desk of the hotel and asking them, what day is it? What time is it? Where are we exactly? That kind of thing. So it was always very chaotic and very confusing.
In 1991, Bowman's disappearing act and his addiction to drugs nearly cost him his life. Chris was reportedly looking for a fix during a trip to Toronto. He met up with a drug connection, and the deal went bad.
And I got seriously hurt by some people that, we often partied with or, bought drugs from. And there was an altercation, a scuttle over substances and amounts and things like that.
The dealer nearly beat Chris to death, leaving him bleeding in the cold, dark streets.
His face was just badly beaten up, black eye. You almost couldn't even see the pupils of his eye.
Chris sank even deeper after the beating. All told, he was arrested 27 times. Rumors began to circulate that he was living on the streets, eating out of filthy dumpsters and sleeping on cold slabs of sidewalk.
That was a very dark and difficult time for me because I was lost. I drank a lot and did just about anything and everything, you know, that was available to take.
Yeah, I think he did hit bottom. It woke him up, the wake-up call, and he realized it.
Today, Chris is trying to climb his way back to the top. He has a wife and daughter, and he's returned to skating, this time as a coach. But Chris still worries for the other skaters he knows are just like him.
So many skaters are really lost as people.
Will young skaters learn from this recovering drug addict? The fact is, as long as money, power, and fame tempt young skaters, the risk of succumbing to the dark side will always be waiting. Coming up, it made the headlines, but did you ever see the video that started it all? Tonya Harding exposed in a sexy video shot on her wedding night. Katarina Witt takes it all off during a nude photo shoot for Playboy. And a parent's worst nightmare, trusting their children to molesting coaches.
It didn't just happen once, it happened hundreds of times.
When on thin ice, the dark side of skating returns. After the medals and applause, it's time to cash in. A champion's face can sell anything, but exposing more than a smile can be like hitting the lotto. And when the little Lolitas of the ice grow into women, people pay big bucks to see them take it all off. And believe it or not, some skaters are more than willing. Two-time gold medalist Katarina Witt gave her career a jump start in 1998, bearing it all in the Playboy Christmas edition for reportedly a whopping $750,000.
Well, I think it's brave. It's very brave. I've seen the pictures. And I think they became very beautiful. And I think it's just like, they made it like art. It's just beautiful, you know?
So Katarina Witt has been able to get away with stuff that other people probably couldn't. And yes, she knew from the get-go that sex appeal would sell in this sport.
Katarina knew that stripping down would sell because this wasn't the first time she'd graced the pages of a men's magazine.
You won't see any skimpy skating outfits at this year's Olympics. The code is unofficially called the Katarina Rule. Apparently, Miss Witt's outfits have been a little too revealing for the skating union. Once the voluptuous skater popped right out of her neckline.
And onto the pages of a German magazine, whose publisher couldn't keep the issue on the stand. Authorized or not, Katarina's photos proved skin and skates sell. And it laid the groundwork for willing female skaters to cash in.
Spread did more for her career than any of her medals.
Now 2 other European skaters have stripped down. The 3 pictorials range from tame to torrid.
Katarina, nude and artistic. Tanya Shevchenko, nude and not quite so artistic, a little maybe more toward the leering side. And Maria Butirskaya, who is not nude at all in the Russian edition of Playboy.
But magazine publishers aren't done yet. With issues flying off the stands, they're begging other skaters to don their birthday suits. Ice dancer Pasha Grishuk reveals for the first time that she's been asked to pose nude.
You want me to do a cover and inside pictures with 2 gold medals right here. And I said, oh my God, no way, I'm not gonna do that.
Although skating is thought to appeal mostly to women, skaters bearing skin and using their sexuality is actually making fans out of men. In fact, a wide variety of network primetime skating specials have focused almost exclusively on the sexual allure of the skaters. The elaborate costumes and routines, the suggestive glances and body movement, all contribute to a sultry and very sensual attitude on the ice. This is not your parents' ice skating. There's money to be made, reputations to be enhanced, stardom to be gained. And while some stars choose to strip down in public, others don't have the luxury of that choice. Some of today's biggest skating stars may be found in nude pictorials all over the internet. But it's not because they chose to be. Ed Lake, internet investigator, has seen the photos and knows exactly what they are.
This is a fake of Oksana Bayol that was created from this real picture in Esquire magazine. It's better than average. Anyone can probably make a fake in about 5 minutes if you have the 2 elements, the body shot and the head shot. You just erase or cut the head, move it over onto the body. That's about it. That can be done in 5 minutes if we know how.
It's a shame, an invasion of privacy and personal choice, but it's happening all the time against the wishes of these young women. However, perhaps the biggest invasion of all, the most scandalous video ever seen of a major skating star, is the wedding night video of Tonya Harding. Her marital romp with then-husband Jeff Gillooly was sold to a men's magazine, and bootleg copies were spread around the world. Here, for the first time on network television, is the shocking video that made Tonya very mad.
People tend to get the wrong impression of me because people out there just want to use me and my name and likeness just to be able to make money for themselves. And it hurts me in the long run.
Shocking, but it's out there. And so are the other photos of women like Katerina, cashing in and changing the way we look at skating. Sex always sells, and now it's selling skating all around the world. Coming up, how would you react if your child said his skating coach was doing this?
He started exposing himself to me, asking me to touch his genitals.
Abuse and molestation in skating. Several coaches have already been convicted.
It's not a secret.
Well, not anymore. When On Thin Ice, the dark side of skating returns. Mark's really molesting them. In one of the most troubling stories to ever scandalize the skating world, the grown man was none other than one of his coaches, who shall remain nameless while Morizi's accusations are being investigated.
He started exposing himself to me and asking me to touch his genitals and asking me if he could touch my genitals, that type of stuff. That didn't just happen once, it happened hundreds of times.
It's not a secret.
Meredith Meyer, Craig's former skating partner, was also coached by the same man.
But anybody who's been around for a while, they know that Craig's story is the truth.
Craig Morizi is now 36 years old. But when he was younger, Craig says he admired, even loved his coach.
You know, this is like my father. You know, it was very deep. It was a big, deep thing for me. You know, I mean, I would have, jumped off a bridge for the guy.
Craig Morizi claims that the man he saw as a father figure began a systematic plan of gaining his trust, creating a strong friendship, then seducing him for a full-blown sexual tryst.
I was led down just small steps at a time, led down a path where we shouldn't have gone. That path then evolved into, talk about sex.
There was no doubt in my mind that there was something going on, and there was no doubt in anybody else's mind that there had to be the sexual abuse.
Then he would start maybe asking me if, or show me a pornographic magazine or something like that, and then ask me if I ever to a magazine.
Morizi says that his coach's sexual preferences included multiple partners.
1, 2, 3, at least 4 occasions that I recall, maybe more. There were instances where we had, I guess you'd call it group sex.
At competitions, Craig and his coach would often share a hotel room.
He controlled everything. And Craig did.
Wasn't allowed to lead my life. He wanted to protect me. He wanted to control me. My girlfriends were being stalked. My door was getting beaten down. I wasn't allowed to see anybody else. I wasn't allowed to talk to other people. God, what? It was like a reign of terror that was going on here.
When a male skater was out on a date, showing up in the parking lot or at the restaurant, telling the skater to go home.
Journalist Christine Brennan revealed in her best-selling book, Inside Edge, that she heard rumors about Morizi's claims as far back as 1994.
Clearly, there are stories out there. And what it leads me to believe is that there's a lot of people in skating who are very afraid to talk.
Feeling abused and consumed with guilt, Craig began to set up elaborate plans to avoid contact with his coach, but his efforts rarely worked.
I would get so drunk that I'd pass out.
On Thin Ice has chosen not to reveal the coach's identity because the investigation into the molestation charges is ongoing, but the man has vehemently denied any wrongdoing. Unwavering, Morizi stands by his accusations.
He would still do things to me, but then I wouldn't have to respond because I was acting like I was passed out. For somebody to still do the stuff like that, I mean, pulling the pants down, doing everything I'm doing that stuff, it's not right.
Finally, after 7 years of abuse, Craig Morisi had had enough. He remembers vividly the day he confronted his coach and put a stop to the abuse.
I plain flat out asked him why he did what he did to me. And his answer to me was that I did this to you because I thought it was something that you wanted to do. And I said to him, you know, how can any 15, 16-year-old boy know what they want?
The really scary thing is, if Morisi's allegations are true, it's not the only time this has happened. In fact, several other cases of predator coaches who stalked their student prey are already in the books. Rape, a New Jersey coach with 4 teenage girls. Sexual battery, a Cleveland, Ohio coach with a young boy. Molestation and physical abuse, a Czechoslovakian coach who abused a 10-year-old and a teenager. In just the last 6 years, there have been at least 4 coaches found guilty of molesting underage skaters. Craig Morisi knew he wasn't the only skater to be molested by his coach. He felt something had to be done. So in a bold and unexpected move that shocked the skating world, he went public. Morisi filed an official grievance.
Craig was brave enough to come forward with his story. He had nothing to gain by it. Couldn't live with the guilt anymore. He couldn't live with the knowledge that this happened and that it could still be happening. And because he was brave enough to do that, people are negative towards him because of it, and they should be thanking him.
Except for his former partner Meredith, few people want to even talk about this alleged tragedy.
I think it speaks volumes about the sport, that whatever the truth is, people either were not willing to talk about what they knew, true or false, supporting either man. I know I've talked to people who said, oh, I've got a story to tell. Well, tell it.
Since Craig has gone public with his accusations, his former coach has moved to another city and set up shop there. And apparently the allegations haven't stopped parents from seeking the man as a coach for their children.
One of the mothers of one of my students asked me if he was a good coach and said, well, these accusations only have to do with boys. There was no sexual abuse that anyone has come out with girls. And I said, no, not to my knowledge. And she said, well, then I could send my daughter to him. If it's just with boys, my daughter would be safe.
Craig, though, is determined to fight on, but he's running out of options.
I talked to an attorney who told me that as far as legal issues go, the statute of limitations has run out. There's really nothing we can do legally. We can't prosecute her, and no criminal charges can be brought.
But Craig won't give up. He's determined to make sure innocent skating children are protected.
That was my, and still is, my goal to have something on the books. Because then that's going to be something that's positive that's going to come out of this. But, you know, damn it, we're going to fix it. We're going to fix it, and we're going to put something in place. And that hasn't been done.
Despite the heroic stance that Craig has taken by speaking about his alleged abuse, he can't shake his uneasiness. No matter what happens in Craig's future, his past will always leave him with anger and concern for other vulnerable children.
I'm mad that I trusted somebody so completely and was so completely loyal to them, and that trust was abused. But I'm worried for other people.
It's a worry that permeates skating, a fear that it could happen again, that a skater's coach, their mentor and constant companion, could be a sexual predator. It's just one of the many ways innocent skaters are turned victims, exploited and driven to extremes. The images are unforgettable. The ugliness, the gossip, and the drug abuse. It's impossible to look at the world of figure skating the same way ever again. The dark side will always be there, lurking just beneath the beauty and grace of the sport that captivates us. A side revealed by On Thin Ice, the dark side of skating.
If you missed the X Show lately, you missed
Acrobatics!
a lot of girls.
No, it's not a dirty thing.
Monday kisses Gene Simmons slips Daphne the tongue. And we're drinking at the Playboy Mansion. Don't miss the X Show.
It's comic gold.
Coming up next on FX.